Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Show to Be with Mike G, the show of life, the show of mezcal, the show of Mexico, architecture, so much more. Some months ago, this is in mid-August, I had a mezcal tasting at the house, as I do from time to time, as I've mentioned in some of the intros to the podcast. But we had Alejandro Champion, one of the founders of Union Mezcal, in the house. It wasn't even a tasting for his brand, mind you. He wanted to hang out with the community here in Austin where we're sipping mezcal. And, I nixtamalized a bunch of corn, had ground it. We went fresh tortillas and do tacos for the group. And he sat in the kitchen with us, pounded out making tortillas, man, on the comal. And if you need any other indicator of someone that's cool that can hang, you think these people that start these big, massive brands, affiliated with Diageo and everything, that they're just out of touch or they're not down to earth. Nah, he was in there busting his ass in the kitchen with everybody else, and I love that. And thanks to Tom Kerner for making that happen, stopping by, drinking some mezcal with me. So we talk about a lot of different things. Really interesting guy, artist at his inner core. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy this great chat with Alejandro Champion from Union Mezcal.
Well, I think human beings, as part of nature, we're all creatives. We have creativity within us.
Right.
And I think creativity is just part of what art is. So life in general, I see it as a piece of art.
Right. Everything
that we see, feel, breathe, it's art in my personal way of seeing things.
Mm-hmm.
But I grew up, my dad, he's an architect.
Oh, okay.
He's an architect, so growing up, I would look at him sketch, and that was sort of like the way he played with me.
Yeah.
It was about, look, let's draw your grandmother, and he would do a portrait of my grandma. Or if we look at in the street and there was a car that we both liked, he would try to draw it, and he would try to make me draw it. So my mom has also been very close to art.
What does she do?
My mom doesn't have a career per se, but she painted and draw throughout all her life. My grandmother on my mom's side is a painter too.
Also runs through both sides.
Just as hobby. None of them professionally.
Right, but they like it. It flows from within them.
It flows from within them. It's something that growing up we saw from both my parents, my grandmother. So for me, art has always been some sort of language that I feel connected to. I sort of understand it. Not that I understand a specific current of art or I'm a specialist in it, but I do see in art something that inspires me, that talks to me, that it stimulates the way I feel. It can change my mood.
Yes.
And I've felt this from a very early age. Looking at the aesthetics in everything.
I was going to ask you, because art is everywhere. It's abundant, as you said, but many different mediums of art. So exactly. We were talking film earlier, but going to music or going to architecture, what is maybe your favorite medium of art?
I think what I'm the most interested and I've been the most involved is contemporary art.
Oh, okay. Very good.
So contemporary art, which would be art from the 1960s to the present moment, right? That would be the current of contemporary art.
That's right.
That's what I felt the most connected to. Obviously, I'm from 1982. So contemporary art is definitely something that is happening in the now.
Yes.
And I think the way contemporary art has manifested throughout the recent past years, it's just like absolutely interesting, you know, like so many different media. From it can be anything. It can be a performance. It can be sculpture. It can be photography. It can be film, it can be acrylics, it can be poetry,
Right.
it can be
Like so many different.
It's open. It's open, and you can mix media, and you can do all sort of things. But at the end of the day, contemporary art is a thermometer of what's happening in the current now.
That's a beautiful way to
here and now,
yeah.
right?
Do you, someone threw out a couple names. This is not name dropping because I don't know these people, right?
Yeah.
So I love Cindy Sherman. You know Cindy Sherman?
I know her, but yes.
You know, mostly photographs and stuff of her. Actually, if you think of it, it's really strange, and potentially we'll look at more of her stuff when we stop recording. But she was one of the first doing kind of selfies and shit. But we're talking in the 60s and the 70s. And so it was just that medium itself. But all right, let's see. So, there's Jackson Pollock, of course.
Jackson Pollock, por supuesto. So though Jackson Pollock is part of the Abex painter, the abstract expressionists, which came out around the 1950s, 1960s.
De Kooning too, right? Is he one of them? I think, because I was thinking like Cy Twombly's earlier. Yes. Kandinsky's earlier.
Kandinsky's a little bit, yeah. I mean, all those artists for me are very relevant because I studied architecture. So during architectural school, you go through the Bauhaus.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So for instance, Joseph Albers, I'm a big admirer of him. He was actually very well inspired in Mexico. He would go to the indigenous ruins, Chichen Itza, Monte Albán. He went to Teotihuacan. And he's got this series of art paintings called Homage to the Square that he started at the Bauhaus. And then when the Nazis came, he came to the United States to continue giving his classes.
Yeah.
But a lot of his work is inspired from Mexico.
Yeah.
Indigenous pre-Hispanic culture.
This is the thing. So I can feel it, right? I can tell that you love art, you consume it, that it drives, you have an appetite for it. So going back to studying architecture, right?
Yes.
Now, talked to lots of people over the years, hundreds of people, a couple of people that were very notable. Their fathers were distillers, or they passed the business down and all this. Any expectation from Dad that you're going to be a very successful, following his footsteps architect?
You know, once again, like growing up and having the opportunity to see my dad draw all the time. Like my dad always has a pencil or a pen, a napkin, and he's sketching every day of his life.
Yeah.
You will see him, like, if he's got 5 minutes doing nothing, he will just doodle around with a piece of paper. But he taught me how to draw perspectiva.
Oh, okay.
Dos puntos de fuga. So when you, like an architect, when you want to sort of visualize on paper something that you're imagining, like a building or a space,
right?
You use perspectiva, dos puntos de fuga. It's a technique. So he, at a very early age, he taught me how to do that, to draw on perspective, three-dimensional. Cool. So I could feel in my hand that I sort of had the same. When you see someone that naturally likes to paint or draw, and you look at how they hold the pen and how it just flows from the fruit, like it really flows naturally.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I could feel it. I could see it on other hands, on my dad's hands, on my grandmother's hands, and I could see it that I had some sort of facility to follow through with my hand and try to like plasm what I was thinking in my mind. Like I could see it on a piece of paper while I was drawing.
Like instinct.
Like an instinct.
Yeah.
Not that I'm super good at it or whatever, but
it's about your connection to it.
But it's just something that I happen to have that gift from life. I draw, you know? So my dad was like, I think you could be a really good architect. And obviously you always look after, in most cases, you look after your dad, your mom. Like it's people that you admire. Fortunately, in my case, I do admire very much my parents. And I wanted to be like him. So I said, yeah, I think architecture could be a good career for me. My dad always told me, architecture is not necessarily about being an architect, but architecture is going to allow you to grasp a lot of culture from your country, from other countries. And you're going to get a sense of what the world is and what's going on. And it's just a window for you to understand the world. So go for it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you don't end up being an architect, it's going to give you tons of skills and information that is going to be valuable.
Yeah, there's no trip I think you can take in the world, travel anywhere, that would be completely pointless. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There's no like even places that I don't necessarily want to go. Maybe some places like in deep of Alabama or something. No offense, Stephen Robbins. Didn't look at Tom, but that doesn't like particularly interest me. But I'll go, and it will always be something that's valuable, even if you don't enjoy yourself. And I like that because I have music as that same kind of lens, or movies as that lens. I'm not much of a reader, but I can now understand architecture being that lens. And so talking about all of the architecture that still kind of remains from classic structures, whether it's Rome or Greece, do you have a favorite style?
Yes. I think in architecture, modern architecture, which again, it's I would say the Bauhaus for me is like this one era within visual arts, architecture, design that has stuck to me and still prevails today. Because when you look at the Bauhaus in Weimar in Germany,
Mm-hmm.
like the way the windows were composed, the aesthetics, the colors, and you look at contemporary architecture nowadays, it's very similar. It's like things that were being built in Europe in the 20s, throughout the 50s, 60s in Mexico and other parts of Europe. That aesthetic per se is the one that I feel the most attached to.
Interesting.
Which is considered arquitectura moderna.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that from 20s to 60s, I would say that's the one that I enjoy the most. But I mean, architecture, every day there's something new. Like one of my favorite cities in the world is London, for instance.
Oh, same.
Because you're walking around London and you see these buildings that have been there for hundreds of years, but right next to a Renzo piano, right? Like skyscraper. And it's like the mix between the old and the new. So, I mean, it's definitely modern architecture. If I had to choose one period in time in history, it would be that era.
There was something that I heard here recently. I've been at Apple a long time. So when you talk about design, I've been in the thick of it since I was in my early 20s. Been there that long. But there was something that Steve Jobs said one time, because Microsoft at the time, I think they were coming out with a new operating system or something like that. And they wanted to build a new font, a new look from scratch, right? And Steve Jobs is paraphrasing, but he says, everything that we need to know about design and everything that's classical, that's already in existence, is enough for us to build on. So do you think that there really can truly be new? Or is it always just a reinterpretation of the past?
I think it's a reinterpretation, definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's really hard to come up with a out of the blue sort of new idea, because at the end of the day, if you go like philosophical in life,
Mm-hmm.
we're connected. We're made out of the same. We're all the same. We're all one, right?
Yeah, right.
So at the end of the day, the ideas and the thoughts and the flow are interconnected.
Yeah.
But I think when artists sort of start creating a new movement or a new way within art,
Mm-hmm.
like jumping from expressionism to cubism,
Mm-hmm.
or from cubism to now contemporary art, like the currents have to do with an influence from the past.
That's right.
And
right.
and you can, and it's totally it's allowed, like it's
sure.
good to get inspired. If in everything, in fashion, in architecture, like you can look at what other people are doing that inspire you, try to get what you like the most of it, and try to put, as we say in Mexico, tu propia salsa a los tacos, no? Like you try to express it in your own way, but it can be inspired by others. And that makes it unique.
Exactly. And I think that's why Tarantino's been so successful, right? Because it's all the stuff that you basically can feed him anything, right? He distills it down into this thing that's still somehow new, even though it's all old, and there are musicians like that, and that happens quite a bit, this feedback loop of music. Not like, we're roughly the same age. Have you seen, I don't know what it's like fashion's like in Mexico City as of like the past couple of years, but everybody's looking like they were on Saved by the Bell now. The fashion and like the big Tom's not his head, like the hairstyle, which I'm fine with. You know, I mean that's a prepubescent kid in the fucking 90s, but it just comes back around. Yes. I just didn't think I'd be long enough, like alive enough to see that shit happen. Have you seen? But you're noticing it, right? Like the older you get, it's like, wait, isn't that a Roxy Music song, or like isn't that a Zeppelin riff or something? You know?
Yeah, everything sort of comes back right in time. You know?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I agree. I think things happen for a reason, and things sometimes disappear for a second, but all of a sudden they manifest again. Mm-hmm. And it's so cool to see things coming back, and they come back in its own particular way, because it won't be exactly the same as Save the Bell, no? But there's an inspiration on it, and I think at the same time we're going through times where more and more people are being free and open to be themselves. That's not the case in every part of the world, luckily. Or in every country, in every city, but I do believe that we're at a point in life where people are not really worrying that much about who they are, and they just want to be themselves and express themselves, and hopefully more of that gets to happen, because we should all be whoever we want to be, you know, and dress whatever we want to look like and do whatever, as long as we don't harm someone else, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, some art is so bad though that it does harm me, I think. When I see it, it makes me wonder, like, this is really the path this person wants to go down. They don't seem to have really a knack for it. All right, so you're studying GDL, studying architecture. Do you finish and get an architecture degree?
You know, I didn't finish school. So I went through 8 semesters. Architectural school in Mexico, it's 10 semesters.
Okay.
So
you were close.
I did 8. I had to leave school because architecture is a career that demands a lot of time from you and resources. I didn't really have the resources to go through my payments. That's the reality.
I see.
So I had to work while I was in architectural school. I had to work to pay for my tuition. And when I started working, I started doing good at what I was doing, and I was enjoying very much the projects that I was getting involved in. What
were you doing?
Art. I was promoting art.
Okay.
So what happened was that while I was in architectural school, I started seeing that a lot of my the students that I was going to school with, friends of mine, a lot of them were artists. You know, they were in architectural school because not necessarily they wanted to be architects, but they loved art, and architecture seemed to be a good career to give a solid foundations in their careers. But a lot of them just wanted to be photographers or sculptors or painters or performance artists. And I could see that it was really hard for them to get their work out there, to be exhibited. I mean, every now and then at the university, they would give us a space where we could throw a show, and maybe your parents or some of other students from the career would check it out. But it was really, really hard to get art into the industry, into the market.
Because artists business isn't, very seldom you have that nice cross where they're business savvy and creative. But really, like from a marketing perspective, artists don't know what to do with their stuff. They just know to create the thing.
They just know how to create it, and they don't know what. And the thing is, it's so hard to make a living being an artist. It's so hard to sell an art piece. When you think about art, it's something that it's not necessarily something you need. I mean, you need.
Good point.
You need food. You need water.
I think we all disagree that you do need art. But anyway, you're right. You're right. It's not a part of the triangle.
I mean, we could argue this, but I think as a human being, obviously art is important, and I can't see life without it.
Yeah.
And again, not necessarily an expression of contemporary art or any current of art. You can have nothing of that, and just your life itself is a piece of art.
Yeah.
You know. So, but what I'm trying to say, when it comes to like a piece of art that you can see hold in your hands or hang in a wall, not necessarily something that you need to have to survive, right? So in that sense, it just makes it really hard for emergent artists to get their work out there, because whoever's going to pay for your art, it's someone that has an additional sort of resource to pay for something that not necessarily might need to survive, right? Like
Right.
it's not a survival thing. So it's just out of that, it's hard to become an artist and to get it out there. But I was looking at all these friends that were doing amazing stuff, like once again, paintings or graffitis or sculptures. And I would just look at their work and I'm like, guys, what are you doing with everything?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have it at the studio. And when is going to be your art exhibition? Are you going to throw a show? They're like, dude, I don't have the time. I don't have the resources. I just got to figure out how to keep going through school. So I saw an opportunity and I said, like, what if I become a promoter behind this artist? What if I try to throw a show for them? And I became sort of like the promoter behind it that finds the resources, the space, and that gets the funds from sponsors, from other brands, and try to get these guys that I'm an admirer of to get to produce art, to have a nice, decent exhibition, and to try to sell their art. And if I can do that, that can be my business. I can be sort of like a promoter gallerist for my friends, and they can sell their art, make an income. So that was like the first idea on my career.
You're what, probably like early 20s when this happens? Mid 20s?
Yes, this happened when I was about 22 years old, 21, 20 years old. Yeah.
So you just got it. Like you kind of knew.
I think I've always had this bug inside me, some sort of drive towards creating like a project. Like I always, I think I got that from my grandfather. My grandfather, he's actually from Brownsville, Texas.
No shit.
Yeah. Rodolfo Champion.
Yeah.
They used to be Italian. Their last name was Campioni. They migrated from Robinho di Istria, which is now Croatia, but it used to be Italy. And they migrated in the First World War into South Padre Island, Port Isabel.
No shit.
And they changed to Champion. The last
bigger.
name.
It's a bigger name. There's no better person than the champion.
Thanks.
See?
But they're comerciantes. So in their blood, commerce, like trading and entrepreneurial sort of spirit.
Yeah.
So I think I was lucky to inherit that from my grandpa. I always had that little bug again, like, what can I do and how can I create a project? And I need to get some resources in my pocket, but I just don't want to have a job and I want to do something that inspires me. So in art, I felt there was an opportunity there. What if I start supporting these buddies of mine and throw art exhibitions? So in Guadalajara, I created this project called Incubadora de Arte Contemporáneo. It's an incubator for emergent contemporary artists.
That's cool.
I did it like for 4 or 5 years. Now it's Salon Acme. Salon Acme will have its 10th edition this upcoming February in Mexico City. And now it's the same project, but it has changed throughout the years because now it's not only me. Now it's a big collective of different artists that we put this together. Long story short, I'll tell you what Salon Acme is right now. But when I moved to Mexico City, after doing these incubadoras.
Like late 20s, right? 2008?
Yeah, I moved to Mexico City in late 2007, early 2008.
Yeah.
And when I moved out there.
Why did you move, by the way?
Well, I moved to Mexico City. I was in Guadalajara doing my art shows, Incubadora, and I was getting sponsorships from brands.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
What categories of brands? Like spirits or food?
Yeah, man.
Oh, you work for Vitamin Water. That's right.
I worked for Vitamin Water.
Yeah.
So that's how Vitamin Water approached me, and that's an interesting story because what happened was I was doing the art shows, and in order to sustain these art shows, I started knocking doors to brands.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, one of my business partners nowadays in Mezcal Union, Toño Vilches, which I've known for more than 20 years. He was from Guadalajara, same town. And he moved to Mexico City many years ago because he got hired by Pernod Ricard, the spirits company. Mm-hmm. So he started growing his career from being, I believe, like an intern and then growing into like a brand manager and then looking after a certain portfolio. But he was one of my first buddies that got invited to move from Guadalajara to the major capital, Mexico City,
I see.
to work for this company. So he was in Mexico City. I was doing my art shows in Guadalajara, and I would call Toño and say, hey, Toño, this is my project, Incubadora. These are the artists. You know a lot of them. They're your friends because he's also from Guadalajara. I'm doing this art exhibition at this really cool spot. Would you be interested in having your brands as part of the sponsors for the event? And he was helping me. He will help me like set up a nice bar, and we would serve nice drinks. And obviously that's revenue, right? Like all those drinks.
Yeah, I get, it's the necessary evil, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to do that stuff in order. It's the only way to empower those who, because to your point, you
need to make things happen, and you need to look for the funds. So brands started sponsoring my events, and that was my first connection to brands.
Oh wow!
And then these events in Guadalajara became popular. The first event, maybe we had at the art exhibition like 10 artists, and maybe 100 friends of ours showed up. But the vibe with 100 people and art was really special, was really cool. So then the second grew a little more, the third grew a little more. So then brands got interested, and they were like, I'll give you the beer, I'll give you the spirits.
Yeah.
And it sort of got like another dimension. Mm-hmm. And because of that, at some point, 2006, I believe, Coca-Cola company decided to acquire this brand called Vitamin Water, which was started by Darius Bikov, a guy from Queens in New York. He started off from scratch. The story is that this guy, he tried to create a couple brands before Vitamin Water. He wasn't successful. But at some point, he had the flu. And he wasn't feeling that good. And he sort of had like a lifestyle where he was in meditation, yoga. So he's like, I'm not feeling that good. He put a capsule of vitamin C in water, in a bottle, went, had some yoga, felt a little better. And he had the idea, what if I do water with vitamins?
Man.
But instead of doing it like pharmaceutical, I'm going to put like a special tone to it. More casual, not pharmaceutical, more like in the fun side of things. He said, well, if vitamin C and water works out, what if I do antioxidantes and vitamin B?
B12.
B12.
And all that.
So he came up with a portfolio that looked like a rainbow, and you could drink the vitamin C during the morning and other vitamins during the late afternoon, and just water with vitamins. And this guy, he builds his brand out of true passion for his own project, out of a backpack, going door to door around Queens, selecting, micro-targeting like this grocery store, this yoga studio, and he was making friends, one bottle at a time, one customer at a time. And Coca-Cola acquires this brand for $4.1 billion. So it was like a big news in the industry. It's a lot of money.
All right. A brief aside. Do you see some peripheral things here, some parallels to your story? I mean, I'm seeing some stuff that I'm not sure you I'm going to say it, right?
Yeah.
Despite the Diageo acquisition, I say in air quotes, and I know you're working with Spirit Ventures. I actually had a couple of those meetings with them as well. But that's actually not the one that's really the thing. What occurred to me very clearly.
Yes.
Artists, maybe not their best self-promoters, Their work is great. Whiskey's art. It's art, right? But what's more art than whiskey? Mezcal.
Mezcalito, sí.
And so, believe me, we'll get there in just a moment. But you went into, I think, originally San Baltasar de Villa, like originally,
Sí, San Baltasar de la Villa, Oaxaca.
Maybe not expecting that you were going to be a promoter of art, but you did the same thing. It's exactly the same. Do you ever think about it like that?
I think in life, I don't really like to overthink things too much.
That's why I'm here, actually, to overthink for all three of us.
Okay.
That's
No. But what I'm saying, I've been guided a lot within my instinct and guts. There's things that I feel things that make you feel correct is the truth. Things that make you feel weird might not be the truth. To put it in some sort of wording.
That. Yeah.
So the decisions that I've made throughout my life have been instinct and gut, sort of common sense driven.
Instinct again.
Yeah, like, does it make me feel good? Do I think I should go on this path? If I feel it, I do it.
Yeah.
And I just do it, and I do it the best I can.
So it just the inner instinct, I'm gonna keep using that word, that you have that guides your pen.
Yes.
The instinct that guides your career.
Yes.
Is this a muscle that you can train? Is it something you're born with? Like, I have it too, but I feel things when it comes to women, I definitely don't have it, right? Like, I do all the wrong things all the time. Anyway, but I
think it's definitely something you can work on.
Yeah,
definitely.
Do you work on it?
Yeah, I mean, as human beings, trying to understand the mind, body, soul, and try to get a balance among that. I mean, we're all trying to have some sort of peace of mind, right?
Yes.
And in order to have peace of mind, you need to understand certain skills on how the brain works and how your mind works and why we act as we do, and try to be conscious of the steps we take in life and where they take you, and learn from it, just from looking at how you react and how you develop.
But how
yourself.
what practice? Because there's mindfulness is very popular right now.
Yes.
I think in a couple of interviews that you've talked about mindfulness.
Yes.
But what does that mean in practice for you?
Well, for me, what happened is I had from an early age, I've had a lot of anxiety. It's something that I've dealt with. And this anxiety has given me a lot of tools in order to understand myself and how to manage anxiety. I think 7 out of 10 people in the world right now might have an anxiety disorder just because the world we're living at.
Yeah.
So for me, growing up with anxiety, as any other human, but anxiety was maybe a little bit extra on my end. So it pushed me to try to develop and create certain skills that will allow me to always be able to come back to a place of comfort and not of extreme anxiety or worriness or overthinking stuff. And I learned this from having conversations with close friends of mine that I would tell them, like, express myself like, oh, man, like, I'm not having a good time. I'm having sort of this bad moment and this overthinking, and I can't get myself out of those thoughts. Like, and it could be my mom, it could be a friend, but I also went to therapy and discuss with people that are professionals and that give you good skills and how to sort of let the waters mellow and be able to see through the water and connect with who you are.
Do you think if you hadn't made an active effort to improve, to change, to understand,
yes,
that you would be where you are, having a very successful mezcal brand, Galleria, you can call it whatever, but do you think you would have even been able to go in that direction had you not pursued what is ultimately mental health?
Yes, I think that if I wouldn't committed myself to make sure that I wanted to have a good, peaceful life, your mind can go nuts. And
sure.
And the thing is, any mind can go nuts. It's not necessarily that you have a mental disorder or something. The mind itself, if you don't know how to manage it, and you just let it go in any direction and you go over and over things, you can get lost.
Yes.
So it is important that the mind is well treated and that it's a very superpowered computer,
It is.
You can just press any button and see what happens. You got to know that if you do this happens. If you do that might happen. So definitely for me it was very important to have this sort of peace of mind. And by doing that, I think when I remember one time speaking to this yoga maestro de yoga, un maestro espiritual. He gave me this example of the body, mind, and soul, right? So when you look at a river and the water is like all over the place, you can't see through it, right? So there's a lot of uncertainty. So when your mind has tons of noise and worriness and you're going overthinking and this and that and you're not getting anywhere, you can't see through and you can't connect with yourself. So underneath the water, like the final rock on the bottom might be your soul, right? So it's it's sort of like, I don't know.
I know what you mean.
How do you grasp it?
Yeah.
Well, you need the water to mellow down, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I remember this guy telling me these, like, man, I think your waters right now are just all over the place and you can't see through. And when you can't see through, you can sort of grasp yourself and you have that sort of certainty where you feel comfortable. So why don't you try to have those waters mellow a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
And I learned how to do it. So I through meditation, through exercising, I think that the biggest skill that I've learned is when you're not feeling good and you're in your mind a lot,
Mm-hmm.
it's not the right path.
No.
And if you go through that path, you might be miserable for a day, maybe a month, maybe a year.
Yeah.
It's all up to you. So for me, it was like every time I felt I'm out of place, out of balance,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's something that I should watch out. I'm feeling it. If I feel I'm out of balance, I'm out of tone,
Yeah.
maybe I need to align the instrument.
Is this... Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but how do you align the instrument?
Yeah.
Right? So for me, a very simple way of doing it, it's to try to get distracted and focus in something that takes you back to the present moment.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily meditation with your seat between your legs, and because that's really hard.
Right. But I think right now we must be present here in this moment, right?
Yes.
And it's actually one of the reasons I do this and have this podcast is because I know my phone's blowing up. It always fucking blowing up, right? I'm sure yours is too. But this,
It takes you right here.
We must both be here.
We must both, and it helps.
Yeah, it totally
Because
helps.
right now, just the fact that you and I are right here and looking to each other's eyes
Yeah.
and having this conversation, putting attention to it, commitment, it allows our minds to escape from a lot of things that we might be worried yesterday or
Right.
today in the morning. And when you're able to achieve that, the waters sort of mellow,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden you feel more certainty.
Yes.
It's like in the not understanding, there's more understanding.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It becomes much clearer. I think people are the answer for me personally.
Yeah.
Or manual labor too is good. Go out, harvest a piña or the sotola. Like that's something that it's you and nature. Like you kind of just have. I can't be thinking about something else because of machete. I'll chop my foot off or whatever, right? It's like you just have to just be mindful in those moments. But much has been said about Mezcal Union, right? Like your stories, and because I always do research on all my guests, your story's been told, okay?
Yes.
And great Mezcal, and having Tom on the team and stuff. He's
Tomas Corner, the one and only.
that's right. He's been moving and shaking and awesome with this thing for some time, But one thing one point for me that I really thought was interesting, and actually I think maybe when I first heard this, Tom was doing a class at Las Perlas. I think everybody loves Tola, right?
Tobalá, sí.
Yeah. It's like they said, oh, there's folk songs written about it, and so much romance, and god damn it, it's hard to grow. It only will grow on a rock on the side of the mountain. All this folklore, right? And then I think it was you, Tom. I'm almost positive. And I said, wait, so no one's growing it? Y'all are growing Tobalá nurseries,
Yes.
right?
Well, in our case, Mezcal Union and the team that started this team, we don't own distilleries, neither
Right.
farms. We collaborate with farmers and producers.
You're just the art promoter. I mean, I'm not to.
I think so. Yeah,
reduce it, but that's your role, and I
think-
think you get that, right? Like,
I think we're definitely that.
Yeah.
We're promoters of mezcal, but at the same time, not only we promote it, but we support so that the atmosphere can actually happen.
Mhm.
The producers that we team up with, a lot of them produce just a couple hundred liters a year, 200 to 500 liters a year.
Mhm.
And they're making delicious mezcal. So we do an investment so they can increase their production capacity, and we take them to 2,000, 3,000 liters a month. And we support with the financial resources so they can improve their production capacity. We support by providing with first quality of agave.
Mhm.
And the producer, by doing that, not necessarily has to worry about cash flow. Now they can do what they love to do the most, which is transforming agave into mezcal, creating mezcal artesanal. And then we also become the distributor.
Yeah.
We put it on a backpack and we go door to door and we make sure we sell it. And we make sure we come back and buy more from them. And not only that, we make sure that we build a certain demand so that it's not only that first family, but more families can come along. And similar on the agricultural side, the farmers are people that have possession of land in Oaxaca. Some people have 1 acre, some people have 3 acres, some people have a little more. But what you see, the context of indigenous communities in Oaxaca is that it's a very rich culturally territory, but not economically. It's hard for them to get resources, especially to plant agave, because agave takes so many years to grow. So when you plant agaves, you won't see any sort of return till the agave is ready and mature in order to be transformed into mezcal. Or at some cases, they are able to sell the agaves when they're 2-3 years old. Not necessarily because they're going to harvest it, but we've made negotiations where we can invest in agaves that are 2-3 years old, not necessarily the seed.
Yeah.
So at different stages. But we not only just promote it, it's we make sure that it's being put back into the ground, that we look after the future, that we make sure that the way this brand is growing is sustainable for the long term. So it's promoting, but also there's a back end where it's about making sure there's the proper foundations so that this can be something that is sustainable in the long run.
It's an infrastructure, honestly.
Exactly.
With just different, not moving pieces necessarily, but different points in the infrastructure that all kind of making the same thing, but maybe they're doing it different. So you have to empower them. Something, y'all have been doing this thing for quite some time, part of the OG crew, if you will, with like Sombra's OG, and there's just a few like that. How do you feel? There's so many new mezcals.
Yes.
Every day, man. And Tom and I talk about this, and it gets exhausting. How do you feel about what has been? It's not massive growth. It's calculated growth. It's like 33.5% year over year in terms of exported liters or something. It's not like 200%, But how do you feel about this category growing so much and so big?
Yes. Well, I think the first thing is, in our case, the reason why we jumped into mezcal was because we felt we wanted to be part of a project that represented the values of Mexico.
Yeah.
And that, like, how can you not only represent, but actually taste the soil of Mexico and collaborate with indigenous communities? Mexico, once again, is a country that is very rich culturally, but very poor economically. And myself and my 3 other buddies that started this brand, we wanted to get behind the project that had that in the equation. It was like about having a purpose. Let's not just build a brand to build a business and hit the goals and whatever, or revenue. It's like, let's build something that we're going to feel proud for the rest of our lives, that we did something meaningful with our lives.
Yeah.
And we felt mezcal was definitely something that attracted a lot of our attention. And going to Oaxaca and understanding the context of indigenous communities and the way they live, there's a lot of lacks and needs in the Sierra of Oaxaca and other indigenous towns across the state and other states that have the denomination of origin. So it's something that it's sad to see, man. Like when you see families that need to migrate to another country, be it for survivance, or new generations need to migrate to other cities, getting away from their parents. When you see that in some cases crime is gaining a lot of power across different towns and areas across Mexico, it's really heartbreaking, So when I see mezcal grow, I think as long as it's gonna do good for the people, let it grow. As long as it's gonna be good for the people, and as long as it's gonna be sustainable, and as long as you're not affecting what makes it special, I think it should grow. Like right now, Oaxaca produces 90% of artisanal mezcal.
Yeah.
We collaborate with indirectly almost 200 people throughout 9 different regions of Oaxaca.
Mm-hmm.
Man, 200 people is nothing from a population in the state of Oaxaca,
yeah.
right? Like, if we could try to get some opportunities and resources on the hands of 1 million people, why not? You know?
Yeah. This is, but I think that's all great. This word kind of comes to mind for you, and I kind of feel like you're a humanitarian.
See?
You know, because you're caring for other people that can't. Not like a conquista. You're not trying to protect him.
No. Just fair business. Fair business.
Right. Yeah. Fair. Bring the art to the audiences. You know, be the connector. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
The connector. You know, and I think that's gonna always suit you very well. And I know that I feel that similar kind of trait personally as a connector to try to bring people together. You know.
I mean, if the case is like mezcal is gonna become these massive distilleries with high technology, no humans, not necessarily humans, but the people that have inherited the knowledge, like these opportunities, are not gonna be for them.
Mm-hmm.
And the context of these people is that they're gonna have to migrate to other countries, to other cities, looking for jobs that have nothing to do with their tradition.
Yeah.
But mezcal is booming and growing. Definitely. I don't want to be part of that. And I don't think no one wants to be part of that. But I think if mezcal as a category and more brands come along and they're looking after the farmers they collaborate with, the producers they collaborate with, they're looking for sustainability. They're putting the agaves back in the ground. They're looking after the wood they use, the water they use. And there's opportunity for the people that know how to do this. And it's good opportunities for them. I think it should grow. And why not?
Yeah.
But I think anyone that is in this business of mezcal, I don't really believe there's someone in mezcal, because whoever's jumping into mezcal,
yeah,
I would say 9 out of 10 people that are into mezcal is because they're passionate about what mezcal is all about.
Right. Yeah.
It's about a millenary tradition. It's about the people, and it's about Mexico's culture.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about improving the lives of the people that know how to do this, because they very well deserve it, because they're craftsmanship. They got so much talent, so much to share, so much to express. And the terroir of Mexico and the origin of, there's so much to it. That's what makes mezcal special.
Right.
Honestly, like, I know so many people that are behind brands of mezcal that's what they're all about. Some people ask me, why are you better than any other mezcal? I'm like, we're not better than any other mezcal. We have our own way of looking at things, our own way of doing things. It's an artisanal product that works with this way with farmers and producers. But there's tons of other brands that I admire tremendously, you know?
Yeah, same.
I look at Alipuz, you know, the guys from Alipuz, or Rey Campero, Real Minero, Neta, and those are like the hidden gems, because they produce 100 bottles.
Yeah,
and that's like going to the purism of mezcal, you know?
Yeah. Well, I love Max and Nikki. They're good.
They're awesome.
Great.
El Cinco Sentidos, and everything that I'm seeing, like even
all the
destilados.
stuff. Yeah, all the stuff basically all the stuff I've got that's on.
But like you got their Del Maguey, for instance. I'm a huge admirer of Del Maguey. Man.
Yeah.
I mean, Ron Cooper did a lot of the grassroots for our new generations like us. Even he's not from Mexico, but he did the grassroots for this category. You know how much revenue and economy this guy developed in Oaxaca?
Yeah, it's
amazing.
Fascinating.
It's fascinating. So I think most of the brands that you see out there, that's what they have behind. That's what they're looking after, and that's what they're trying to achieve. But definitely there's other companies that might see mezcal as the next ultra growing category and want to go industrial. And it's not about the terroir. It's not about the people. It's not about the environment. It's not about the tradition.
Yeah.
Well, that itself is not mezcal, you know?
Right. So I got 2 questions left for you, and then we're going to go, this is the first time I've had a podcast guest and Tom. We're going in the kitchen. We're going to go cook together.
Nice.
So we come from a different industry. But I actually did do a bit of cooking. But, all right, because we're talking about art, I want to talk painters. And so let's say you're anywhere in the world drinking El Viejo
Yes.
with any painter living or deceased, and you just want to sip mezcal and have a conversation with, who might that be?
Yeah, I think Jean-Michel Basquiat.
Basquiat, yeah.
Yeah. For me, Brooklyn, it's very special.
Yeah. Well, vitamin water piece too, right?
Well, vitamin water, but it wasn't really by vitamin water. I never really correlated until now. But for me, Brooklyn's really special because it's our biggest market for Mezcal Union.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's one of the cities that I felt, and Austin as well.
Yeah.
It's Austin and Brooklyn, the first two cities that we launched away from Mexico. So the love that I have for Austin and Brooklyn is like, it's forever. You know, like the first two cities outside my country that opened the doors for Mezcal Union. I've made tons of friends like Tom that we've been working for years now. But Brooklyn for me, it's very, very special, and he's from Brooklyn.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And what is it about Brooklyn? Well, Brooklyn is a place where people from all over the world live. It's so diverse. It's a place where three of the things that I love the most, you see it every day. Skateboarding, basketball, art, graffiti.
Yeah.
And so for me, Basquiat and the pop art movement, Andy Warhol, like those guys are really, really inspiring for me because I think they were able to plasm art in a way that was completely out of the traditional art, you know, like from Impressionism and
breaking the mold.
And they broke the mold. It's sort of like punk, you know, in many ways.
Yeah.
So I think those guys were able to transmit the American world culture in a very contemporary way, breaking all the boundaries and being themselves and not caring about what someone would think.
Who gives a fuck what anyone else thinks, right?
Yeah, even like Basquiat would paint on the door of a refrigerator, or he would grab garbage, and out of garbage he would do amazing art.
Must create.
So yeah, if I had the opportunity to sit down with a couple painters, artists, and have some Mezcal Union, Basquiat, Warhol would be definitely two that I would have loved to.
I'm learning a lot here. Tom, you learning a lot here? Good.
Actually, there's this one restaurant in New York City called the Odeon in Tribeca.
Why do I know of this place?
And it's a diner.
Yeah.
But
I've heard of this. Yeah.
It's very well known. These two guys used to sit at one table. So I'm such a big fan that I've actually went there and asked for the table. Like, where did these guys used to sit there? And I could feel it, you know, like I felt like I was there having a mezcalito, but not with them, but they were at some years back sitting right there.
That's really cool. All right. So last question for you. You've been in Texas for a little while now.
Yes.
I hear you're leaving next week. Actually, I can't recall. Times, I don't get time
Wednesday,
anymore.
San Antonio, then Dallas, then Houston.
Do you enjoy being in Texas?
Very much. Very much, yeah. I was saying that my grandfather...
Brownsville, yeah.
From Brownsville. So growing up, my mom and dad and my two brothers, we would jump into a van at 3 a.m. in the morning in Guadalajara and drive all the way through Matamoros to Brownsville, Texas.
No way.
So those were my first sort of like family vacations, and it was coming to Texas. And I remember crossing the bridge into the USA and getting into Texas, and just the smell of it's different. Like once you get into Texas, there's a smell on the streets, there's like the heat, the weather. So for me, it was really, really inspiring growing up and having the opportunity to come to Texas. And it's where my grandpa is, so it's really special for me. There's a lot of nostalgia.
Yeah.
As I'm driving in the highways, I remember growing up, my dad driving those highways. And again, like I remember when we launched the Mezcal Union here, and we have friends that are still supporting us since that day. Liquor stores, restaurants, bars, people that have become my best friends now.
That's amazing.
So when I come to Texas, when I come to Austin, I feel in many ways like home.
Yeah.
And Brooklyn as well. And that's I think the biggest thing that or the biggest gift that life has given me, being in mezcal, is making friends and being able to share this with others. Huh?
That's right. It's the greatest gift, this industry, to be honest, the community.
The community.
And I guess that's a good prelogue to us having a nice tasting together this evening with a bunch of folks. And it shows you what community is all about when it comes to agave. So Alejandro.
Gracias.
Yes, dude. Great to meet you. Thanks for chatting.
No, great chatting with you, man. I love this conversation. Thank you.
Cheers. Likewise. We'll talk soon, yeah?
Yes. Gracias.
Well, there we have it. Alejandro Champion, one of the founders of Union Mezcal. If you don't see the direct ties between event coordinating and working with artists to share their work and providing a space for them or a canvas for them and Union Mezcal, like, is there no more common underlying thread there? And that was something that became really clear. I was kind of unclear, I think, about the brand itself. I'd been to San Baltasar Guela Villa and visited one of the producers that I think they used to make mezcal for Union, but it was confusing, and I think Alejandro did a really good job of helping us kind of understand more what the motivations are, what the core tenets and ethics are of the brands, and drinking mezcal that brings us together. You know, you can say what you want about sustainability or big brands and all of that, and that's all fine. But until you start really asking the questions and understanding the people, you get less of a sense of what's really going on. So, amazing night, eating some of the best tacos I've had, drinking some amazing mezcal. And really doesn't get much better than that. And it was the series finale of Better Call Saul that night too, which was actually kind of emotional. So again, thanks to Tom Kerner for doing the intro, sitting in. One of the few times someone sat into the conversation. He gets to be a fly on the wall. And thanks everybody for listening to Show to V with Mike G. It's been the holiday season, been very, very busy working on lots of things. So I'm going to get these episodes out, I promise you. So no matter how many seasons of Chopped you've been watching since 2009, if you're thinking, I've got today off, what am I going to do with the rest of my afternoon? Please keep dancing.